Round 14 of the NRL has bit the dust, Peter Sterling, and for Peter Sterling's wrap, we go back to the 6 p.m. game on Friday night. The Penny Panthers keep winning.
Hello, Joel. You're not James Bracey. We must be a day late after a long weekend of footy, yes, and it did start on the Friday night down in the national capital. Look, a gutsy win from Penrith. They didn't play that great, but they found themselves 10 points behind with about 10 minutes to go and found a way to get out of trouble. I think the merit of this victory is the fact that it had Origin players backing up. They're away from home. They were in all sorts of trouble on the scoreboard. But they were smart enough to take advantage of some problems that Canberra had. They lost BJ Leilua early in the game. They ended up with Elliott Whitehead and Atano Hingano playing on the right side as centre and winger. A couple of errors there, and Penrith were able to score the points. And, of course, it was the young man of the moment, Nathan Cleary, who kicked the winning field goal to end a wonderful couple of days for the outstanding number 7. It
was amazing because typically James Maloney's the go-to man for the field goals, isn't he?
Not anymore, no. They're happy to take on responsibility, these young blokes. And, look, I've got to say, Canberra, Ricky Stuart was very proud of the effort. He thought that, they had a lot of things obstacles to overcome, but still some poor decision-making. They lost another close game. And I think this effort from Havili, they're 22-16 in front. I don't think he's practiced to do this, especially when you've got the likes of Jared Croker in your football team and also Aidan Caesar, who are wonderful kickers of the football. So, it gave the opposition a chance to come down the other end, score the try. Maloney converts, and all of a sudden, they're in a chance to win the game. Either the field goal from one of their established kickers or put it in goal or down in the corner and make Penrith work from there.
Well, you speak about pretty wins or ugly wins. Look, they don't draw pictures on the ladder, that's the thing. And that was the case for South Sydney as well. The Burgess boys, they know it wasn't their best game, but they're like Penrith, they keep finding ways to win. Yeah,
2-point margin this one, and it was a pretty gutsy effort from the Gold Coast side when you consider they had Keegan Hipgrave in the sin bin on 2 occasions. So they were 1 short for a quarter of this game. South Sydney started really well. That's Dewey, who's playing in the centre position because they did have to cover their Origin players who were rested by Anthony Seibold, looking to manage their workload. So in the end, another good win for South Sydney, so close for Garth Brennan and his Gold Coast team. But I thought it was a chance for the Titans in this one and they let it slip, but South Sydney good enough on the night to get home under strength.
Yeah, and big from Seibold, thinking big picture, isn't it? Leaving those players out. They're in a position to do so where they are on the ladder. But as far as the Manly side, look, Warriors have been below par the last month or so, but this was a big win and they solidified their spot in the top 4. Yeah,
Manly took a home game to Christchurch and it backfired on them and they got away to the good start. They scored early from Api Coruscant, who left the field, and that was a big blow. Matt Wright ended up having to come in and play dummy half for the duration of the game. But I've got to say that I thought the Warriors here, who'd struggled over the last 6 weeks, found the kind of form we saw that we'd seen from them in the first half of the season. Sean Johnson was back at his dynamic best. No Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, but Isaac Luke again was probably the best player on the field. But I have to say, Joel, that they were aided in the second half by probably the worst kicking game I've seen from any club. Now, these are 4 kicks in a row, okay? So this is early in the second half. It's only 10 behind. Just look at these. They kick it to the Warriors on every occasion, putting no pressure on, not a lot of thought behind them, really bad execution. That's an area, obviously, that Manly need to fix up, and it's surprising when you've got a player like Daly Cherry Evans in your lineup that it was that poor.
The Roosters took a long time to put the Knights to bed. They were brave, weren't they, the Newcastle Knights?
They were, and they went right to the wire in this one. Great start from Latrell Mitchell, who set up Luke Keary for the opening try. But as Trent Robinson, the Roosters coach, pointed out, they got a contest in this game. And Kalen Ponga, in some ways, was the catalyst to get Newcastle back into this game. The pass he throws from the Tautia is an absolute perler. Blake Ferguson was outstanding, took advantage of some ordinary defence on occasions from the Newcastle Knights. But I've got to say, the home side never went away. They kept coming, and even the final last flurry of the game, they were still doing their best. That effort there to back up after throwing the perfect ball to Matautia was outstanding from Kalen Ponga. Again, a tight one. The big blow for Newcastle, apart from the loss of competition points, Jamie Buhrer out with another ACL injury. He won't play for this season. He'll have to consider his career as to whether it can continue on. Nathan Brown, very strong that he will be back.
Gee, you were very sprightly and up and about to get to this desk today, Pete. The Eels, Darwin, victory versus the Cowboys. Well done to the Parramatta fans.
Yeah, 4 from 5 in Darwin. They might have to consider taking more games there. And of course, the return of Jared Hayne was fairly significant in this game. Scored a couple of tries against a battling North Queensland side who just came up with way too many errors. Their best football we haven't seen for a long time now. I still think they're a predictable football team. They do lack some speed. And Parramatta went out with a really good mentality in this game. Defensively, they got into the North Queensland side. A lot of errors from North Queensland, but a number of those were forced ones by the rushing Parramatta defence. Brad Arthur said, we went out there not trying to lose the game, but trying to win this one. And I thought in the second half they handled Jonathan Thurston particularly well. Thurston, is going to try everything to get out of trouble, but just have a look here at the Parramatta defence getting up in his face, getting him to make decisions a little bit quicker than he would like to, or forcing the bad pass. So that was really well done on that JT. And I thought the other JT, Jason Taumalolo, was well handled, especially by young Reid Mahoney.
Yeah, what a game.
Young
Tough
hooker.
little bugger.
Very much so. He was around the legs of the big fella more often than not. Thought it was a really good showing in his first time in the top grade. Was out there for about half an hour. And he made every post a winner.
Mal Meninga is suggesting that perhaps Michael Morgan goes to 7. Do you think that makes a difference? He's also perhaps hinting at Kevy, pick Morgan at 7 for Queensland perhaps.
Well, you listen when the Australian coach has a suggestion. I don't know whether Paul Green will run with that. It's more about, it's not a slur in any shape or form on either of those players. It's about getting Michael Morgan closer to the football where he doesn't have to think as much. That was the point.
More instinctive.
For Jonathan Thurston, it's not going to make too much of a difference the way he plays.
Okay, Tigers taking on the Sharks. Now, the Tigers 10-2 for a long period of this game. They looked to be in control, but clickety-clack, Sharkies just went away with it.
Pretty much on the back of this effort from Paul Gallen. Got no right to score that try, but forced his way across in a great show of leadership. Look, at the start of this game, you're thinking, well, here's two clubs that defensively this year have been fantastic, but where are the points going to come from? There weren't a lot of them scored. The Sharks have a great ability in tight games to be in front at the 80th minute, but the West Tigers 10-2 lead. They'd be disappointed they let this one slip, but for the Cronulla side, pretty tough effort, and it's kind of Groundhog Day with them. A tight game. They got the job done in a tough way.
They're not a team that you'd want to be playing in the finals, are they? Like, they're tough, they've got depth, all those sorts of things. Storm taking on the Broncos. Sluggish start for the Storm with those players out. Slater was out, Chambers was out, etc. Boyd gets them off to a flyer here. The Broncos, they just couldn't go on the whole journey.
No, and Wayne Bennett very disappointed with the second half effort from the Brisbane Broncos. I thought that the 40 minutes from Melbourne to bring this game home was just about as good as it gets. And we'll have a look why in a moment. But, this is Melbourne at home. We know that they're a tough football side to beat, but a lot of players missing. Both their strike centres in Curtis Scott and Will Chambers out suspended.
Yep.
So no Billy Slater. Jerome Hughes has come in and deputised really well. So a good opportunity for Brisbane to go down to Melbourne and win where a lot of teams don't. But Cameron Smith, boy, what a joy for the side. This is how he started the second half. Got momentum. The chase here from Addo-Carr and Munster is outstanding on Boyd. Down into the corner. They force him in goal there. They get the ball back. This is how he finished the game, Cameron Smith. So it's kind of head and tailing this last 40 minutes. He was the puppeteer. He orchestrated everything. And it was the back. Those two kicks just summed up that kind of performance. Now, in the second half, Brisbane got the ascendancy back at one stage. A couple of tough calls went against them. But Melbourne wrested it back from them, scored a couple of tries late and blew that scoreline out. Great second 40 minutes from the Melbourne Storm. Opportunity lost for Brisbane.
What a player, Cameron Smith. Unbelievable
Well, I was
player.
going to say, the fact that they've got him during this origin period where they don't have to worry about the emotional and physical toll that has taken him inflicted on him in the past. It's a godsend.
Unbelievable. The Bulldogs and the Dragons desperately needed this one. They'd won the last 6 Canterbury, so it was always going to be hard. But this time around, they did just enough to get home.
Yeah, and there's always an issue between these two sides when they come together. It doesn't matter where they are on the competition ladder. So really, in the end, it's no surprise it was a penalty goal that separated them. They got a good lead in this one, the Dragons, and I thought they relaxed a little bit. And Canterbury were good enough in the second half to come back and score a couple of quick tries and really make a contest of it. But for the Bulldogs, it seems to be the case that they get so close so often. I think their last 6 losses have been sort of 6 points or less. So it must be very frustrating for Dean Pay and his players, but they just tend to lack that cutting edge. No Kieran Foran involved in this game at all. The Dragons, not as good as we saw them early in the year, but this middle period here is about consolidation. That 2 points helps do that. Once they get their players back from Origin and get the run into the finals football, I expect them to be a lot better now. At the moment, it's just about finding a way to win football games and putting themselves in a good position for later on.
Still a major contender.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, there's Sterlo's wrap for another week. We look ahead now to round 15.